Welcome to the Inside Pitch. I'm Christopher Lockhart, the creator and administrator of this private Facebook group where screenwriters, creators, filmmakers meet to ask and answer questions and to exchange ideas and information on the craft and business of movie making. I am joined as always by my co-administrator, Ramesh.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Chris.
Ramesh and I do not work alone. Our third administrator is camera shy, but we always like to give a shout out to Steve and Lo. What's up, Ramesh?
Not much. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's been very warm here in Los Angeles.
It's been rainy here.
Is that right? Yeah, we had a little bit of rain, but
yes, I saw all the posts from the people in Los Angeles when it rains.
Yeah, there's a sprinkle or two, and it's and it's like the biblical flood. But it was really hot. Thankfully, I was I was away for most of the heat. But I actually had to turn on my air conditioning, which I hadn't done all summer. So I might get a little sweaty today. I kind of work up a sweat a little bit when we do these things. Maybe it's you, Ramesh.
That's it. Yeah, I have that effect on people.
I think you make me kind of hot. I always like a man with a beard, Ramesh. And what a coincidence!
I know.
Because our guest today also, he has a lovely beard. Actually, it's a very nice color. So let me say hello to everybody who is slowly beginning to find us. And it is a Sunday. We usually do these on Saturday, but I kind of screwed up. I had to teach a class yesterday. Forgot about that. So we rejiggered the schedule. Tyler was nice enough to take time out on his Sunday. It's also, of course, the 21st anniversary of 9/11. A rather somber day. But life goes on, and so we will continue in the tradition of life going on. Right here. Hello. I see Annie is here and Dennis. As usual, if you're not logged into StreamYard, I can't see your names, but feel free to drop a question in the comment box, and either Ramesh and I will read the comments or questions that you have for our guest. Hello, Heidi. Nice to see you too. Annie's going to order a beard. Annie, I'd like to see you with a beard. All right, enough of this silly chit chat, of which I'm very bad at. And Ramesh, you are so disinterested when I do my chit chat. You're like,
no, I was just looking at the comments.
So bored. You're off doing other things. You're like,
I was reading the comments.
Just shut up and let me just get to my introduction, because we've got a really cool guest, because he's got this super hot movie.
Yes.
On Netflix, of which I watched and enjoyed. It's got Jamie Foxx and Dave Franco and Snoop Dogg.
Yes.
I want to know, what was it like when you heard that Snoop Dogg was cast? And I have to say, maybe full disclosure, he happens to be a client of the agency that that I'm employed at.
Right.
So not that has anything to do with anything, but we're kind of brothers in.
I take it you know his agent?
In arms. I'm not actually sure who his agent is, but yes, I'm sure that I do know.
Perry.
Okay. Ramesh, you know that I'm very, very bad at doing any of the research in advance. I literally roll out of bed and I meet our guests and we have a good time. Yes, I guess I should say what movie, but I'm going to let Ramesh say what movie. Somebody's like, Chris, what movie? What movie? All right, I'm going to shut up. Ramesh, take the floor. Introduce our very special guest.
Yes, our very special guest today is Tyler TICE, who is a New Jersey native, an art school dropout, and a writer of horror-ish screenplays. His big break came when his script Day Shift won the grand prize at the 2017 Slamdance screenwriting competition. That film, Day Shift, is now on Netflix, starring Jamie Foxx, Dave Franco, and Snoop Dogg. He lives not in Los Angeles, but in Fernandina Beach, Florida, with his beautiful wife, 4 crazy kids, and a weird little dog. In his spare time, he enjoys rocking fresh gear and reading about organized crime. He's repped by Perry Weitzner at WME and John Zalzerni at Bellevue. Tyler, welcome to the Inside Pitch.
Hello.
Tyler,
Greetings.
what's up?
How you doing? And thank you for the beard compliments.
I know.
You know a way to a man's heart.
Well, in the publicity photo, the beard, it's this beautiful kind of rich color, and I was really admiring the beard. I was like,
Thank you.
And I can't grow a beard at all.
Yeah.
I just don't have enough testosterone or something. I don't know. It's sad, but I'm surrounded by a lot of manly bearded men.
Exactly.
So you can live vicariously through all the beards around you.
Absolutely weird. I don't know. That sounded sort of. Are you guys my beard? I don't know what that means. So Tyler, originally from New Jersey.
Yes.
I'm a Staten Island boy. So
okay. My stepfather's from Staten Island.
Is that right?
Yes.
No, I see. Who knows? I might have gone to school with him.
You probably did.
Yeah, it's a small place. Very, very, very small place. So you've got Day Shift on Netflix right now.
Yes.
And I'm sure you're really excited about it, and rightfully so. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I just maybe wanted to ask you a little bit about your origin story and sort of tell us, because you're an art school dropout.
I am.
And how did you eventually finagle your way into screenwriting?
How far back do you want to go?
You can go as far back as you think is interesting.
Okay. Well, I started screenwriting at that art school. I was a film major. I went there. I hated being a film major. I wasn't very technically inclined. This was still in the 90s when we were still filming on 16 millimeter and cutting it by hand. But I did have a writing for film and television class there. It was at University of the Arts in Philadelphia. And that's where I started screenwriting. And I was really good at it in the class. And they would always read my scripts as examples. So that kind of sparked my interest. And then shortly after I dropped out of college, I actually worked as a PA on a movie. And I saw what goes into actual filmmaking. I didn't want to do that anymore. So at that point, I just wanted to be a screenwriter. And I don't know, years later, I did all kinds of writing. I wrote scripts. I wrote short stories. I wrote a novel at one point. I started doing stand-up. I did stand-up for a couple of years. Through stand-up, I eventually met a writing partner, and we wrote comedy together. And this was in New York City. And then I came out to LA. We came out to LA together, and this was like 2010-ish. And we were writing like sitcom specs and sketches and our original comedy pilots and all that. So we did that for a couple years. We moved out to LA. The partnership just kind of fizzled out. We broke up. He started writing television drama. He actually wrote for Hawaii Five-0 for a while. I went kind of more of a horror direction because that's what I love as a kid. So I started just writing horror features. I won one competition at one point. Got one meeting out of it with a manager, and then it kind of fizzled out. And then it was around, 2016. I was married. I had a child. I moved to the Valley. I was done with screenwriting. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm in my late 30s. I'm still waiting tables. I just got to do something else. So I actually moved back to my dad's house in New Jersey, and I started going to community college to be a history teacher. And it was me, my son, my wife, and my dog all living in the house that I grew up in. And I just one day, my son was sleeping a lot during the day. I was going to school at night. My wife was working during the day. So I was like, I'm going to write that idea for the vampire movie I had when I lived in the Valley. So I wrote it, and I entered it in every competition I could. And I won the grand prize in Slam Dance. And that's kind of what got the ball rolling. So where we are now.
I love this story because it's, my God, you're such a layman. And like, I don't mean that as an insult. It's that sounds like the slog that so many people can identify with.
Yeah.
The sort of highs and lows, the moving out to LA and then kind of going back and, living with your dad and sort of, all of these dreams being kind of battered here and there. And yet you kind of persevere. Even through having a family and night school, for God's sakes. and yet you write the screenplay that ends up sort of changing everything.
Yeah.
Wow. So what kind of horror movies inspired you? You said that you liked horror movies, so I'd be curious.
As far as Day Shift, I think for like, it's all the, the Lost Boys, of course. Let the Right One In, I really like. Yeah. I like the first season of True Blood. Really inspired Day Shift. I think just to kind of their vampire mythology I thought was really great.
My
Night.
brother, I love Fright Night. The original, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually just watched the remake not too long ago, and it's not bad. It's not as good as the original, but it's really not bad.
It did. For me, it sort of lacked a little bit of that sort of that boy who cried wolf tension that I love so much. It didn't feel as strong.
Yeah.
But who was the kid in that movie? It wasn't Anton, was it?
Yeah, it was Anton Yelchin.
Yeah, okay,
wasn't
yeah.
it? And the first one was the guy from Herman's Head. I always forget his name.
Yeah.
And
his girlfriend
Herman's Head. I love that show.
And his girlfriend was Amanda Burst from Married with Children.
Yes, exactly right.
And Chris Sarandon was the vampire.
Yeah, the vampire. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know this. The guy who played like his major domo, Billy Cole, I think that was the character's name.
Evil Ed? Is that Evil Ed?
Not Evil Ed. No. He went into gay porn.
I did another interview where someone talked about that too.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to talk about that. But the guy who was like, he was Chris Sarandon's guy.
Yeah. His like familiar.
His familiar. Yeah. That guy is like a really big TV showrunner, really big TV producer showrunner. Yeah, his name escapes me and his credits escape me, but I thought that was really interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned the Lost Boys because I hadn't seen the Lost Boys. I think probably the only time I saw it was when it came out, and I was talking to my brother who had seen Day Shift and loved it. And he was like, and I loved all of the Lost Boys stuff in it, and I was like, oh. Like all of that went over my head. He was like, "What? Like the last line?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay." So maybe if you're old, you haven't seen the Lost Boys in a long time, you might want to watch it first. However, it didn't detract from the entertainment value of
you
the
don't
movie.
need to see it.
No, not at all. The movie really is a lot of fun. I love the scene with the Russians. They're Russian brothers, the Armenians, excuse me. Just being a dumb white boy, and the ugly American, and but that scene is a lot of fun, and you've got an Oscar winner.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right, an Academy Award-winning actor in your movie. Which is a lot of fun. Let's talk about the slam dance contest. So when you wrote the script, how many contests did you enter it into? Did you think about that? Were you strategizing? You knew the kind of script that you had. Were you thinking, this would be great for the nickel, or this might be better?
Well, that's the one Austin? I avoided. I that's what I've done for years. I've always just written scripts and entered it in competitions because people, managers, agents have always told me that's kind of a backdoor into the industry. I'm not particularly gregarious, so I'm not going to go out there and schmooze it up. But I figure if I could write a script good enough to win a competition, I could get in somehow. And that's just kind of what I did. And in the past, I never won a competition straight. Well, I did that one in 2014. But other than that, I always placed. And I figured if you're placing in a competition, your script's got to be halfway decent. So as far as the last one went, there were always certain competitions I entered. I always liked Austin was a good one. I always entered Slam Dance. I always entered the Blue Cat competition. And Blue Cat's nice because they give you feedback. I didn't enter Nichols. I didn't, it's not really, I didn't think it was really a Nichols quality script. Basically what I look for too is in a lot of competitions, they'll have like a separate horror category, almost all of them. So I just figure if your script like even smells like horror, you can enter it in there. And it kind of gives you a leg up because it's a separate competition.
Right. Yeah. Very wise. And so Slam Dance, that runs at the same time as Sundance, typically, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And so was there a ceremony? Did you go to collect a prize, or did you just stay home and be the?
No. I was living in New Jersey at the time, and I was working at a restaurant and going to school. And I remember I would kept getting it'd be like every Friday I'd get an email, and it'd be like that it'd be whittled down, and that these are the people that are left, and my name would always be in there. And then I remember getting the letter. There was like in each category they had I think it was feature, pilot, short, and horror. And there were 3 people left in each category, and they were like, fly to LA and come to the ceremony. And I wasn't even going to do it at first, but my wife's like, you just got to go, just go. So I got the money together. I went out to LA, and I won the horror section. And I was like, okay, I figured I could win the horror section. And then they did and then they take all the winners of all the different categories, and then you have like a big prize, and that was the grand prize. And then I won that whole thing too.
Ah, very nice. And we don't often hear when people talk about screenwriting contests, slam dance isn't always in the conversation, is it, Ramesh? You often hear people talk about Nickel or Austin or, some other ones, but you don't often hear about slam dance. So how did you parlay that win into a sale? Was there representation first? How did all of that work? How did you then cross over? Because a lot of people win contests. There are a lot of people in this group who have won contests. We have Nickel winners in our group, but they haven't had their movies made. So, so what was the difference here?
So after I won, I went back to New Jersey. First thing I did was I dropped out of college. I'm going to try and ride this thing out. See how hard I can go.
Wow.
It was like 2 weeks. I haven't heard anything. And then the guy that runs Slam Dance is this guy, Peter Baxter. He called me up and he was telling me, he was like, I've been trying to get you representation. I've been sending your script around. I can't get any bites. No one wants to represent you. He's like, but you know what? I think I can do something with this. So let me option it. And I'm gonna see what I can do with it. So I'm like, yeah, okay. If nothing's happening with it anyway. And his whole reasoning too, he's like, I could either make this for like an independent movie, it could be made for under $1 million, or it could be a huge movie. So it's a very versatile script in that sense. So he optioned it for like $1,000, and then he just started taking it around. And I get like an update every couple weeks or so. He tell me like what directors he went to and stuff, and no one was really into it until he brought it to Impossible Dream, who's Sean Reddick and Yvette Yates. They produced like Get Out and Black Klansman. And I think it was Yvette actually read the script, and they saw it as something bigger. So they came aboard as producers, and they started bringing it around town as a higher budget film. And they actually went to a birthday party. I think it was their daughter's friends. They accompanied their daughter to a birthday party, and J.J. Perry, the director, was at the birthday party with his daughter. And Sean knew him previously, and he knew he was looking to get into directing. So he was like, I'm going to pitch him the script. And he went up to him and he pitched it. He read it. He loved it. He wanted to make his first movie. And that's when JJ came aboard. And that started it rolling a little more. And that's kind of when we started turning it more into an action film. Like originally it was more of like I would say like a horror dramedy almost, with scenes of action. But like once JJ came aboard, all the rewrites were like making it more action packed. Like the scene with the Nazarian brothers in the original script, they killed 3 vampires. In the final, they killed like 100 vampires. There was never a car chase in it. JJ called. He was working on the new Fast and the Furious movie out in the UK, and he would call me up at 5 o'clock in the morning and be like, "We need a car chase. I sent you a bunch of videos. Work it in somewhere." So I'd work in a car chase. Even like the first scene with the old lady. Like in the original script, he just went in there and just kind of fucking brutalized this old lady and just staked her. Like they were like more exterminators kind of in the original script. And in this one, he went in and it was like a drag out knockdown fight. So that's kind of what he did. And then once we got the script to the like action packed enough, then we brought it to Chad Stahelski of like John Wick fame, who's really good friends with JJ. They came up together as stuntman. We brought it to him. He liked it. He came on as a producer, and his notes were more, he wanted to bring out the union. So that's kind of when we started working on the union more. Every time I did another draft for him, all the notes were like more union, more union, more union. So we worked on it with him, got it to where he liked it, and then that's when we went to Netflix and got in there.
Were you repped during this whole time?
No, I wasn't repped until the negotiation came when we started doing the negotiations with Netflix. And actually, JJ and Chad had the same agent at WME, and she called me up and she was like, "Hey, I really like to handle your negotiation. If you like it, you can sign with me." And I said, okay. So she handled it. She got me a lot more money than I was supposed to originally get. So I signed with her, but she's no longer at WME. So
yeah, it's interesting to me. And I hope that people are really listening as to really being able to envision the gears, there were the series of gears that was going on behind the scenes. I think people literally think, oh, I'm going to write a script and I'm just going to send it out and someone's going to buy it. They're going to read my login, they're going to read the script, and they're going to buy it. And it doesn't really work that way anymore. I think maybe at one time it did, but it doesn't really work that way. And I think what you just described, you had this contest and this Mr. Baxter who, sort of took the initiative to option the script, share it with people. I used to work with Sean Reddick at ICM.
Okay.
And then, you have these guys, and then they bump into somebody sort of serendipitously, and then they're thinking, so, they make the connection. It's literally like the inners of a watch.
Yeah.
And sort of everything has to sort of click and come together. It is incredibly complicated, and it's really why every movie is different.
Yeah.
The way projects come together are so different. I love this story because it really truly speaks to how things come together.
Yeah, and it's like while it's all coming together, I'm just sitting in New Jersey, just getting a phone call every couple of weeks. They tell me all the details. I'm like, okay.
Exactly right, which is why I always say, you need people.
Yeah.
You need people. So Slam Dance started out, he became your guy.
Yeah.
And he was your emissary, so to speak, here. And that's what people need. It doesn't necessarily have to be a manager or an agent. But
I didn't have a manager or an agent until after it was over. My manager came after everything.
Amazing. And then but yet you had the agent negotiate the deal. And did you get an attorney also? Do you have an attorney?
I have an attorney now. I had the agent negotiate the deal, and after that. And after I did all the rewrites on day shift and they brought on the other writer, and then I was like, okay, I sat down at my desk. I didn't know what the fuck to do because, it's this whole new world. I quit my job at my restaurant, and I didn't know what to do. And that's when I needed a manager. So I called my agents and I was like, I really need a manager. And then they had me come back out to LA and they set me up with a bunch of managers to meet with. And then John Zalzerni at Bellevue got my final rose. So I've been working with him ever since.
Let's talk about that process. We've actually interviewed him here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He does a lot of interviews.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
And but so tell us a little bit about that process of shopping for managers. So you were in a position where you were introduced to managers, which of course is always a great way to go. Now, I will say that you did it kind of a little bit backward because it's pretty,
that's
right?
What everyone says.
Yeah. Because typically, agents wouldn't jump in so soon. But if they do see a potential big deal on, and again, I want to kind of, underscore big deal, they can see the potential of the deal, then somebody might jump in at that point. But typically it would be a manager first, and then the manager would introduce you to agents. Here you just did it in reverse, which is fine. But so what was that process like? How many managers did you meet? Do you want to dish on any? What was it that you liked about some, disliked about others? Why did John get your final rose in the end?
Well, I should start off by saying I had some managers calling me up, and I was like, I didn't, I wanted a manager, so I just signed with one. And then I told my agents, and they were like, we don't do it like that. Can't just sign with anybody. So
so did they reach out to you because of the contest win?
No. Yes. The manager read my script. I think he read it through, I think it was at Yvette Yates and Sean Reddick. I think he read it through them. He reached out to me. He repped people I knew, people I liked. So I just signed with them. I thought it was going to be great. And then I told my agents, and they're like, we don't work like that. We can't just work with somebody, some stranger. So they're like, so they made me call him back and tell him I can't work with him, which is awkward. And then they said, come out to LA as soon as you can, and I'll set you up with a bunch of people we do work with, and then you'll meet them and you'll pick one. So I went out to.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is like really good stuff. I just want to keep recapping things
Yeah.
here. So probably a good idea not to sign with the very first manager that is interested.
Yeah.
You know,
And there's nothing against him. I think he's a great manager. He reps people, but like they were like, that's not how it works. We work with our own people. We're a team, and this is how. And like I don't know who this person is, so we're not going to let him into our team, you know, without knowing him.
Lesson number 2 is it is vitally important that the representation team, agent, manager, for example, get along.
Yeah.
And so agents and managers like to have a relationship. I know many agents who do not get along with managers and vice versa. When I was at ICM and we repped Jennifer Lopez, my boss, Ed Lamato, did not get along with her manager. They did not get along, and it resulted in a lot of bad stuff and eventually, you know, a dissolution of the relationship. And we lost Jennifer as a client. And so people don't want to get into that. They want to have a good relationship. So jumping the gun sometimes yourself isn't always the best way to do it. Okay, now back to Tyler.
Yeah. So I also want to say that there is like I spent 20 years learning how to write, and you perfect your craft in screenwriting, and then you get over that hump and you're in Hollywood, and then you're like a baby again because you have to learn all this Hollywood shit, which I feel like I fail at miserably a lot of the time.
Well, you know, you're doing all right so far. It seems.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm treading water. But so anyway, so they sent me out to LA. I met with 3 managers. All of them were great. I had no problems with all of them. But the reason I went with John specifically is because I felt like he wanted it the most. He's the one that I don't think any of them brought up like specific parts of my script. He read Day Shift. He loved Day Shift. He talked to me about specific parts of it. I get his wife's a writer. All his friends are writers. So he understands like the psyche of a writer. And he was talking about things that I thought were only in my head. I don't know. It was just a personal touch. Like, no, I feel like all the other managers they set me up with were just kind of like, oh, well, this guy has a deal at Netflix, so we're just going to come aboard. Where John, I thought, like, loved my writing. And John's big in development, too, which I would love to have, you know, right now we're developing a script together. And which is nice because then you're actually preparing a script for the Hollywood market because he knows the market. So you're not just going to sit there and write something like with Day Shift. I did rewrites for 2 years, and then I still got taken off the movie, and they brought on like 4 other writers. So I figure, you know, if you can bypass as much of that as possible, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it is nice when you have somebody on the team who understands the development process. And I think that's really what a good manager does. You know, not only are they sort of holding your hand through the whole just day-to-day thing, but they can be a sounding board. Agents can certainly do that, but they're often, you know, they tend to be a little more preoccupied with the negotiations and the deal, which managers are not allowed to do.
Yeah.
And so they can do this other stuff. So talk a little bit more about the development process. Talk about sort of where the script was when it won the contest, how it got to what we saw, and sort of what your feelings were as the script was evolving, as other people rewrote, as perhaps other ideas usurped your own. What was all of that like?
You know, I was on it for I was probably rewriting it for like 2 years. You know, like JJ came on. Well, at first, you know, when anybody comes on, like, you know, Peter optioned it, and he took the script that originally won the contest. It was much smaller. It was like a 100-page script. You know, it was less action packed, more like kind of gritty and character driven, I would say. And then once, you know, when Sean came on and Yvette came on, they had their own notes. So I did a few rewrites for them. And then when JJ came on, that was the major rewriting, making it more action packed. That was basically a year of my life, is making Day Shift more action packed. And then, you know, Chad came on and he was all about the union, but more action as well. And then, you know, we finally go to Netflix, and that was in October of 2019. They flew me. I was still in New Jersey. They flew me out. We had a meeting there. They gave me their notes. I worked on their notes for like through. This was like in October, and I worked on them through the holidays into January. And then there was probably like 2 or 3 drafts in there. And then once we got to January, I remember Chad called me up one night and he said, yeah, we're going to bring on another writer. And I thought, initially that conversation was going to be hard to take. But, that last draft when I wrote 2020 on it, and I've been writing it since 2016, I was ready to let it go. So that he came on, and I don't know. I don't have any problem. He got it over the hump. He did the notes better than I did, and the movie got produced and it got made. So, I like the final version. I have no problem with it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a great attitude.
The core of your story, though, I mean, I read the draft, I read the script. The core of your story still remains.
Yeah,
the scene with the Armenian brothers gets expanded. The opening gets expanded a lot, and all that, and the union stuff, obviously. But it's pretty much very true to your vision, right?
I would say the first 3 quarters are very true to the story. That Seth's a little different. In my version, he was like an up and coming vampire hunter who's training, and here he's like a union guy, a union rep. But he serves the same purpose, same personality. The end's totally different, but and I think most of the dialogue, honestly, was ad-libbed by Franco and Fox during production, because I've read subsequent screenplays and none of that stuff was in there. So.
That's fun. And but yeah, so I like your attitude, but you were certainly sort of exhausted with the writing, and yet you were okay with letting it go. Let's face it, it is a collaborative form, and sometimes another eye can sort of bring something to it that you couldn't do, and then sort of it takes it to where it needs to be, and you get a movie out of it.
Yeah, that's the important part. It's on Netflix now. My draft's not, so.
But the movie's there, and it's. I meet a lot of writers who aren't in your position, and yet they're very adamant. I would never allow anybody to rewrite my stuff. And I'm just thinking,
then your stuff's not going to get made.
It's like amateur night.
Yeah.
Look, of course you could always go out and make your own movie, and good luck with that. I'm not saying that is a bad idea, but hell, man, it's nice having a movie with Jamie Foxx in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about sort of the casting process. Were you involved at all? Were they keeping you informed about who they were going out to? Were you excited? Did you have your own ideas? Who did you see in those roles when you were writing them?
Well, when I was writing this script, I usually only picture myself as the main character.
Really?
So for me, Bud has only been me and Jamie Foxx.
Wow, that's interesting.
I think they made the right decision. But I mean, they don't really keep me in the loop. I'm only really kept in the loop because I'm friends with the director, and I'm friends with Sean and Yvette, and they would keep me in the loop as a courtesy. They would call me up every once in a while and tell me who they were going out to. I do remember when they chose Jamie Foxx, so my agent called me and told me that, which is very exciting. And then after that, kind of everything fell into place. But he was like the first big one, and then everything else, like all the other ones, kind of fell into place.
And what about the Snoop Dogg casting? So was the role in the script, did it sort of have a Snoop Dogg quality to it?
I don't think so. No, he was just an older vampire hunter.
Right.
Probably much older than Snoop Dogg is. He was a Vietnam vet, just kind of like, just an older guy that Bud looked up to. Was kind of his thing.
So give us the inside scoop. Who, when you were writing it, who did you see in that part? Like Nick Nolte or somebody?
I guess Nick Nolte would be good. I just kind of I was living in the Valley at the time, and I was just trying to write about characters I saw in the Valley. And there were always these kind of old timers that would have long gray hair and a big Hawaiian shirt that were always just kind of, in the Valley. That's just that kind of character.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Nazarian brothers. There were always a lot of Armenians around. So I tried to include them,
Yeah,
and,
I got to say, casting people are terrific sometimes, and it's like I'll read scripts a lot, and like I'm looking at a script for a very particular kind of client, let's say, but I see somebody else in another role, and then when the movie's cast, I'm like, oh my God, like my head wouldn't have gone anywhere even near the vicinity of that person. And yet that person made the movie so much more interesting. I think, sort of the addition of Snoop definitely, kind of adds something to it.
Especially in that role too. I think it's perfect.
Especially. Yeah, I agree. Ramesh, I know we've got some questions piling up. So
yeah. So let's see. Question. Well, you answered Dennis's question. Well, how did you get the idea for Day Shift? And going off of that, on Chris's question, why did you set your story in sort of the outer suburbs of LA? What was the?
Okay, it's kind of all the same. I was like at this point, it's like 2016, like the summer, fall time. It was like right before I was planning on moving back to New Jersey. I was living in the Valley. I had a son. He was like a couple months old. And I would, after I put him to bed, I would go on my, I go out on my balcony and I would smoke weed. That's what I do every night. So I put my son to bed, and I believe that day I was watching the What We Do in the Shadows movie, and there was like a vampire hunter character in there. Right. Kind of the stereotypical one with like the trench, like a Peter Vincent in the original Fright Night with the trench coat and the stakes and stuff. And I was like, I always loved the trope of the vampire hunter. But whenever they do a vampire hunter in movies, it's always like, it's like a code, or like he's the chosen one, or it's like some kind of family thing, or like, and I was like, what if it was just about money? What if these guys were just blue collar guys that were like exterminators, and they're just going around and taking out vampires and they get paid for it? And that's when I came up with the whole idea of taking the fangs out and all that. And as far as the Valley goes, when I first moved to LA, I lived in Silver Lake for like 5 years. And then I had a kid, and I just figured what you do when you have a kid is you move to the Valley. And in my head, the Valley was the Valley from my youth, the one from like E.T. and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And then you get there and it's not that place anymore. It's just this kind of weird like hybrid of what that was. So I just I want to write it here. This place is fucking wacky. And just the fact that, it's so sun drenched and at all times. And that's kind of like the antithesis of what we think about with vampires. So I just thought that was kind of like a neat idea.
It's funny that you say that about the Valley, because when I first moved to LA, I hadn't been here before, and the only thing that I knew about about LA was the Valley. From things like Fast Times, or I remember like Terminator 2 and Valley Girl. And so that was where I moved.
Yeah.
That was where I settled, and I lived in the Valley for almost 22 years.
Are you still there?
No. I moved over the hill.
Yeah.
Eventually, but something, I think in my retirement I would actually go back.
I love the Valley. I mean,
I do too.
It's like you live in. It's still LA, but there's parking. There's not as much traffic. It's easier to get around. I don't know. People are more laid back.
You know what I always say? I think I like the Valley because it reminded me of Staten Island.
Yeah, it kind of is like, especially like the West Valley. It's like Staten Island.
It is. It's kind of the disrespected, forgotten part of LA, and so go Valley. And it inspired the movie.
Yeah.
So
I think it kind of became a character in the movie, which was my initial idea.
Ramesh, other questions?
Do your manager and agent want you to keep writing in the same genre, or are you venturing into other areas?
Yeah, they want me to kind of start writing it. I never set out to write action horror comedy, but since that's what this is, that's most of what people kind of want me to write, and they're kind of having me write things in that vein. I like to branch out on my own. So kind of what I do is I have one script right now that I'm working on strictly with my manager, developing with him. That's kind of exactly what he wants. And it's more of the Hollywood script. And then I have things on the side where I work on myself. And then, most of the you'll have producers reach out to you and want to pitch for something. And most of the things they want are in that vein, either horror or action.
which makes sense because they know you from day
Yeah.
shift, and so that's sort of what they expect, and it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I like horror action movies. They're fine.
Yeah, I think some people consider it like being pigeonholed, let's say. But hey, if you're pigeonholed enables you to make a living as a writer, then I think that's an okay place to be.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Go ahead, Ramesh.
Did anything? Your other script, The Ostrich Farm, which also made another list. It made the Fresh Blood list, right?
Yeah.
Back in 2014, went with the Blood list, and it's sort of vastly different from Day Shift. It's sort of this. I love the idea of the smoking of the beetles.
By the way, let me just say, thank God for Ramesh. Ramesh is I shouldn't even be here. Ramesh does all this research. He's wonderful. Thank you, Ramesh.
No.
He asked to read The Ostrich Farm. It blew my mind. I'm like, I can't believe you even heard of The Ostrich Farm. It was like this weird script I wrote in like 2014.
Ramesh is so on top of it. It humiliates me. And I apologize to Tyler for being such a slacker. But thank you, Ramesh. So go ahead.
No,
Ramesh. Something, Ramesh.
No, The Ostrich Farm is a lot of fun, but it's a completely different sort of in tone. And how did you sort of go about getting that onto the Fresh Blood list?
It was a competition through Stage 32.
Okay.
It was the same thing. I wrote that script. That was kind of a lot more personal, a lot different. It's more kind of like a small town crime story mixed with like horror. It made it onto that. I entered it in a bunch of competitions, and it won that one, which was through Stage 32. I think it actually placed third, but the top scripts got onto the Blood list. So I think it was the top 3 got onto the Blood list that year in the New Blood section, they called it.
Right.
And they had like a party for us in LA. I met managers. It was like days of the guy who runs Stage 32 calling me up, telling me everybody that wants to read the script. And then it just kind of phased out, and just nothing came of it.
Yeah, you hear those stories a lot too of the initial thing, and then it just sort of disappears.
You read it. It's a wacky script.
It's a wacky script, but it's like I would have never ever thought of coming up with the idea of smoking the beetles.
Yeah,
which is just.
Well, we know Tyler likes to smoke.
Yeah. I wanted to make my drug movie.
But it is. But it's also a great character study too. It's it's a really wacky story. Go ahead.
Ramesh, can I just ask you, for those who don't know, can you just tell us what the Blood list is?
Oh, the Blood list now it used to be the Blacklist, but it was for the annual most popular horror movies, horror scripts, unproduced horror scripts, and then they also had a branch off of that called the Fresh Blood list, which was about I think they were unrepped writers.
Yeah, it was all that was
the best of the unrepped writers. The Blood list was rep writers, and it was but now they've gotten rid of the Blood list, and now it's only the Fresh Blood list.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the last 2 years they haven't done the Blood list.
Yeah.
Well, it's more exciting, Fresh Blood is more exciting.
So
right?
now they have I think last year and the year before last was only the Fresh Blood list that came out, and so so it's horror and thriller and but
dark
you can
genre. I think they say any dark genre script can
and it's pilots, it's short stories, I think last year's short story got in too.
I think there's not the year I made it. Stephen King was on it, so
oh wow,
because he needs the
right.
and his career.
He needs rep.
He does. And so Tyler, you said that you gained access to that through Stage 32. So I'm not familiar as to, I understand how the Blacklist works. So does the Blood list work the same way?
I don't know. The blacklist works from representation, isn't it? Like managers and agents picking their favorite scripts of the year.
It's executives who are choosing their favorite
okay.
scripts of the year.
The blood
I don't know
list
if the
used
blood
to
list
be run by a manager named Kaylee Marsh.
Yes, yeah.
She
I don't know if
ran-
it still is, but
and
yeah,
then
when I was on it, she did.
Right. I believe she sold that part of it to someone, to Brillstein.
Okay.
Interesting.
And so she works there now as a producer. So I think that's how it runs now. And that's why they sort of got rid, I think, after the sale, the blood list disappeared, but the fresh blood list still exists. And they open it up for submissions for only 2 weeks, August 1st to August 15th.
This is interesting. Okay, this is what I wanted to know, because I've never seen this discussed in the group, and so this just sounds like another opportunity for people to get their scripts out there.
Right, and it's free for submission, and
free.
Yeah,
even better.
And August 1st to August 15th, you submit, and then she announces them, the fresh blood list and the blood list, but the fresh blood list on the day after Halloween.
Okay, yeah. When I did it, I think it was Halloween.
Right.
When I got on there, it was the day of Halloween.
And I would say don't be discouraged. Like, you hear Tyler's story, and okay, so it kind of fizzled out, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. Because you still need to take that shot, and it was, in a sense, kind of foreshadowing, perhaps. It sort of foreshadowed your career, and maybe it gave you a little bit of extra confidence to know that okay, people kind of are jiving with what it is that I'm doing. So maybe I'm on the right path, and maybe I just have to write the right script.
Yeah, I remember talking to somebody. I was still in LA. It was after I got on the blood list and everything kind of fizzled out and I didn't know what to do. And he was a professional writer and he went to Harvard and everything. And I remember asking him, like, what should I do? And he goes, oh, you know what? Just win another competition. That should do it. I was like, okay. But I did years later, and it did do it. So he was right.
Yeah. Easier said than done, but if you get the right stuff, and then again, as we heard from your story, this is empirical evidence now. Jupiter's got to align with Mars, in many ways. But
be ready when Jupiter aligns with Mars. Make sure you have a good script when that happens.
And the beautiful thing is that if you do have a good script, then Jupiter tends to align with Mars a little bit easier.
Yeah,
because people want to be in business with this project, because people believe, this is a movie, this is something that we can get made. That's clearly what all of those people were thinking. Yeah. So, all right, Ramesh.
How did you keep your, through all these years, sending into contests and all this, how did you sort of keep your morale up, your motivation going?
I feel like it's like any screenwriting book you read. I think it's like always in the first paragraph. If you can do anything else, do that. Don't do this.
Right.
I just couldn't really do anything else. I don't think. I was always working odd jobs. I was, worked at restaurants. I painted houses. Whatever. I was a college dropout. It's just all I wanted to do. And I love writing. It's what I do for fun. It's my favorite thing in the world. I now that I'm a quote unquote professional writer. Like, it used to be like I had my day job, I had my wife, whatever little bit of social life I had. And then I would write, that was what I did. I wrote, I had fun, and it was like, that's what I wanted to do. But now that, I don't have a day job anymore and this is my day job, I've tried to find a hobby, but I can't. I don't like anything else. I just like writing. Right. So I guess writing is my hobby and my job at this point.
Do you write every day?
Sorry. Yeah, I try to. And I'm also like, I know a lot of people dispute this, but I think thinking about writing actually is writing. So I am constantly writing, when I'm with my kids or when I'm like, I'm always thinking of things. I'm always writing in my head. And then I'm in my office every single day. I'm always putting pen to paper, always working on something.
I think that's as good a philosophy as anyone that I have heard. So when you were struggling and you're dropping out of college and you're kind of working odd jobs, what are people thinking? You know, people thinking, oh, this guy's, oh yeah, right. You know, this guy's going to be a Hollywood screenwriter.
I think that's pretty much where I think my wife was done. She's like, you need to do something with your life. I think my mom was kind of over it, you know. she just, I mean, it's different when you're in LA though. Like you're not looked as like a crazy person. You know, I was like, when I left LA, I think it was 37. You know, I'm in my late 30s. I'm waiting tables. I'm doing the same job I've been doing since my early 20s. But people are used to that. That's just what you are. But then, like, you go back to New Jersey, and you look crazy. You look like a crazy person. That you're 20 years in, you're still going after this thing.
Right.
So that's why what prompted me to. I'm like, I just got to do something with my life. And so I liked history. I was like, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to be a history teacher. But it just wasn't for me. I mean, going back to school in your late 30s sucks. And it's a lot of work, especially when you have your kid. And all I kept thinking about is how much I want to be a screenwriter.
Right. Oh my God. And to be in your late 30s, to have to walk into a classroom of like 13-year-olds. Oh,
well, being what day it is today, I remember it was 9/11, and the teacher was like, he's like, you were probably too young to remember 9/11. I was in college. I remember it, like it was yesterday. And
right.
No one remembered 9/11 in the class. They're all babies.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well,
why did you leave LA?
For that reason, I wasn't going to make it as a screenwriter, and I figured if you're not going to be in the entertainment industry, why live in LA?
Okay,
and it has its charms. It's just not my favorite place in the world. So I just
how'd you wind up in Florida?
So I moved back to New Jersey. I was staying at my dad's house, and then after the whole thing started rolling with day shift, it was just waiting to get paid because it took a while to get paid. So I'm like, I'm going to wait to get paid, and then we're going to move. And I was actually going to move back to LA. And when I went to go meet my manager, when I started working with John, that was right before COVID hit. So I knew I had to go out there. I brought my whole family with me. At that time, it was a pregnant wife and 2 kids. We actually found a place in Santa Clarita, and then we went back to New Jersey and COVID hit. So we're like, we're not going anywhere. And my wife is from Jacksonville, which is the city I live outside. And we were like, let's just go to Florida. It's cheap there. We can live by the beach. Your mom, she was pregnant with another baby. Your mom's there. She can help us. So we came down here, and you know what? Right now I'm renting a 5-bedroom house 10 minutes from the beach, and it costs the same as my 1-bedroom apartment in Silver Lake 5 years ago or 6 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And I do all my meetings on Zoom, which everybody in LA has done for the last 2 years anyway. Right. And I fly to LA when I need to. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to stay here. It's fucking hot, but it's good for right now. But
you got a lot of kids.
I do. I have 4 kids now.
That's maybe you're smoking too much weed.
Well, I actually have a vasectomy scheduled tomorrow.
Oh,
I'm done. I'm getting out the game.
All right.
I'm not moving at this point. It's like I have to get a new house, a new car. Like I'm done.
Yeah, I mean that's a brood. That's a brood. There's a screenplay in that.
Yeah.
So you said that it took a long time to get paid. I like these. Yeah, I like to ask these questions because it's the reality of the business. So can you sort of how long did it take? So you mean when there was a deal, they didn't write you out a check that day?
No. Well, first of all, it was nice because I won Slam Dance and I got 10 grand for that, which was cool. So you get little bits of money over time. And then I got the option, which was another grand, put that in the pile. But from that point, I getting option in 2017 to when I actually got paid was supposed to be 2019. They started the processing, but then the holidays hit. So the holidays hit and I didn't get my money until 2021 or till 2020. This was at the end of 2019. Yeah. They started trying to process it all and then everything shut down. So I quit my job. I thought I was going to get this money. And then the holidays hit, everything in Hollywood shuts down. So I couldn't get my money till after the holidays. I had to spend all my savings on my kids' birthday gifts and shit. But so from 2017 to 2020, that's how long it took.
Wow.
It's meanwhile, amazing. I'm trying to write as much as possible, doing all the rewrites. I was working full-time in a restaurant, taking care of 2 kids at the time. They just keep coming, the kids, over the course of it.
It's that weed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Don't ever let anyone tell you it does anything to your sperm count because it doesn't.
It doesn't. But it clearly makes you amorous.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I try to tell people all the time. It's like if you're about to be evicted from your apartment, and you just signed a deal, you may not get paid for 2 years.
Yeah,
You know,
and even once
you
you
might
do
be
get
on the
like how
streets.
yeah, and how they set up the deals, I don't know if this is how it always was, but with Netflix, it's different things that you get paid for. It's not like here's like a couple $100,000. It's like you get your there's like a production bonus, and there's like your credit bonus, and they all
Right.
come at different times. So you'll just get a
Correct.
check in the like it'll just like end up in your account, and then I have
Right.
to contact WME and be like, what is this? What's this for? And then they tell you. And
Well, that's certainly a great call to have to make.
yeah, it's not bad just getting
Yeah,
money, but it's just
but
trying to keep track of everything, what's coming and what's going, and
right. Yeah, this is not a business for people who are impatient.
yeah, they'll talk to my wife. She's like she's just watching the money like disappear, and it's like
Right. Well, that's why you got to do something next. So I
Yeah.
know that there was a question. What are you doing now? What's next? What are you aspiring to? So on.
I'm
so forth.
aspiring to be rich and
Good.
prolific, I guess. I just want to raise my kids and support them wholeheartedly, writing just what I want to write. That's probably not in the cards. I don't know. When I got here and I started working with my manager, I thought it was just like, I'm going to write this script. I remember like when I first started working with him, I sent him this big, this outline of this script I wanted to write. And he's like, we're not writing this. He's like, this isn't going to sell. So basically I spent like a year working with my manager, just pitching him ideas. Every week it would be like 5 ideas, and then he'd shoot them all down. And then there was one idea we started working on for a couple of months, and then it just kind of went nowhere. And then we started working on another idea, and that went nowhere. And the idea we're working on now is actually an idea he pitched me, and he's like, we can get this done quick. So I'm like, let's just do that. And so I'm working on that, and that's my main focus. Plus I'm also working on another thing that's more personal to me, kind of one for them, one for me kind of thing. And then I've also recently been sent some short stories and stuff that they want pitches on. So I try and put stuff together for that. So those are the kind of things I'm working on right now.
And so like, what's the market out there for work for hires?
It's not good for me. I mean,
No.
Because basically, I mean, for anything they send me to go out for, I go out for because I want to, I did because I want to make money. And so it's a lot of remakes, like the Gremlins remake they'll send me or stuff like that. And you'll spend weeks out of your life putting together a pitch, and then it never goes anywhere. They probably don't even look at it, and they just give it to one of their friends. I think is usually until you're that guy. That's what my agent and they're like, don't even worry about those things anymore. He's like, don't go out for them unless it's something that really speaks to you and you have a great idea for, because most likely you're not going to get it. You're just a new kid on the block. I mean, before a month ago, I was just a guy that wrote a script that people liked. Now I have a credit to my name, but still, he's like, your best bet is just keep writing specs. Just keep writing spec features and try and do something with that. And if the right script comes along, it will. He's like, eventually you can be that guy that gets work for hire, but right now you're not.
Yeah, that's a lesson in reality, right?
Yeah. It's, and you know how much time I've wasted going out for those things, putting this whole thing together when I could have been writing on my own, my own scripts and have more stuff done by now, and just kind of learned that lesson. So when they ask me now, I don't go out for everything like I did. If it's something that speaks to me, I will. Like I have a producer I've worked with in the past reach out to me and had a short story, and I thought it was awesome, and I have a great idea for it. So I'm putting that together for him. And, he knows me and he likes working with me. So I have that foot in the door already, as opposed to just some random person that's, reached out because he liked day shift. I had one guy reach out. He gave me it was a graphic novel he wanted me to adapt. I spent weeks, wrote up the whole idea, everything like that, sent it to him. Down the line, I ended up meeting with him again. We're having a conversation. He's like, "Oh, I'm looking for something for you to do." And he's like, "Oh, how about this?" And he mentioned the name of the graphic novel again that I spent weeks out of my life putting together a pitch for and writing it all up and sending it to him. Like, I already sent that to you, dude. Like, you have it in your inbox. He's like, "Oh, I'll have to look at that." And I never heard from him again. So they didn't even look at it. And I spent, how much time and effort on that thing.
Yeah, this is good to hear. You know, I mean, it's not because like this is the business, right?
Yeah.
I think so many people think, oh, I'm gonna sell a script and it's gonna be produced and everybody's gonna see it, and then the doors are wide open, and it's like you're literally starting all over again every single time.
Yeah.
It's
Even for
it's
day,
a
I thought like day shift comes out and like I'm just gonna be getting hounded. And like, I got a couple calls, but nothing like it wasn't like the floodgates were open and more money's just dumping on me. It's still the same
it's
thing, still the same fucking grind every day.
it's such a slog and it's like yeah we see like a movie on Netflix, and I'm sure it was the number one movie on Netflix. I
Yeah,
wasn't
for
tracking,
two
but
two weeks in 150
two,
countries.
there you go. But there's still that sort of lack of box office sheen, right?
Yeah,
So it's like if that movie had been released theatrically, uh, let's say 3 years ago, perhaps your career would have taken a more powerful, blast from it.
yeah,
It's just this is sort of where we're at right now.
yeah,
You know, so it's through no fault of your own. This is just the business right now.
yeah.
I mean, it's always been a slog. It's always been really, really, really hard. But I think it's even harder now. So the fact that you even broke through is amazing. It's a
Thank
miracle,
you.
and we're so happy for you. But yet at the same time, people can see, my God, like he's doing the same stuff that I'm doing almost, and yet I don't have a number one movie on Netflix.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you get hit reset every day.
It's tough. But you have the passion to get through it.
I also have the
Clearly.
apparatus in place too, of like the agent, manager,
Now you've got all of that
lawyer.
in
Like
place.
when I write something, I know, because I do still write things on my own. Like I'll write up, like over Christmas, I wrote a pilot and I can send it to my manager. He didn't like it, but still, like I have a sounding board, and if he
Right.
did like it, it could do something with it.
Right. So how do you handle that? Because at the agency, there have been times where somebody has, like a very big client has, let's say, written a pilot or a screenplay that nobody really likes, but yet the client is very demanding. Like, I wrote this and I expect the agency to get behind this, period. So how do you feel about that? You write something and the manager says, yeah, I'm not really jiving with it. Do you push back? Do you say, is there a way to salvage it? Or are you like, I'll just put it aside and maybe pull it out in the future?
Usually I'll just put it to the side and pull it out in the future. If it was something I really believed in, he would tell me, he'd be like, I've written things in the past that he's read, and he'd be like, oh, what we should do is this, this, and this, and this. But like, sometimes he's like, yeah, this isn't really working. And honestly, like, having a script, I'll always like kind of use them for parts later. Like the script that Ramesh read, the Ostrich Farm, right now I'm using actual things from it in a different script. Oh. And like Day Shift, there were 2 pilots I wrote previous to that. One was about a burglary crew in the San Fernando Valley. The other one was about a haunted apartment building in the San Fernando Valley. And so much stuff was taken from that and put directly in Day Shift. So I always use it again. So I don't consider it like a lost time or anything.
That's what the Broadway composers do, So like they write songs for a show that flops or never makes it to Broadway, and then years later they take some of those songs.
Yeah, you got a song there.
They put them into a new, and then it becomes like a standard.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's kind of like it's like a salvage yard.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's like you steal a car and you break it down for parts.
Right, exactly. Ramesh,
do you have a what's your screenwriting process? Do you outline? Someone said, do you do character bone structures? Do you does the kernel of the story percolate and grow? What is that like?
Yeah, I get it's. I mean, it's different now that I work with a manager. So I With my one that I've been working on the side, like that's had time to percolate and it's had time to grow and marinate and my old process, what I used to do. I kind of think about a script for a while before I really get in there, as I did with Day Shift. But with a manager, it's kind of like you're just throwing shit at the wall and hoping something will stick. So you're just trying to come up with as many ideas as possible, and then once it's a go, it's like I've always outlined. I've always outlined obsessively. But with a manager, when my outlines are shit that I can read, like I'll have a notebook and it will be notes that I can read or note cards. But with a manager, it's kind of like you have to let him in on your process. So you're sitting there writing out like basically a full treatment of your idea, and that's what becomes your outline. And then you'll write like an act of the outline, and you'll send it to your manager, and he'll tell you what he likes, what he doesn't like, and then you'll redo it. So it's kind of the same process, but you have someone inside your head and trying to communicate things to this person, exactly what you're doing. Because in the beginning, I wasn't really doing that well either. I would just kind of like give him notes as I would give myself, and he really couldn't tell what I was doing.
Somebody is asking about story structure. Do you use an 8-sequence structure? Do you write in 3 acts? Do you even give it any thought? What's your approach to structure?
I really don't give it any thought.
Come on, really?
Yeah. With Day Shift, I just figure I put a script together, I put it together in my head, and it just kind of falls into some kind of structure. As far as working with my manager on the one now, yes, it's much more into a structure. I'm not like, I need plot point 8.2 on the middle of page 50 kind of structure. But yeah, there's a 3-act structure there that we abide by. But as far as Day Shift went, I don't think about, I'm not like, oh, this is the inciting incident, it's going to go here. The act, I just write it and it just falls into structure. I figure I've seen enough movies, I've read enough scripts that I know what a movie can look like. It might not be exact, but there's a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, I think that a lot of writers who just have sort of an intrinsic and inherent ability to understand drama, they just write, and it's sort of everything just falls into place because they write dramatically. They understand all of that stuff, and they may not know what it's called. They may not know that it's called an inciting incident, but they just sort of understand intuitively that there's a moment that goes here, and they don't even think about the moment. They just write it, and it's just there. It's kind of like a natural thing. Yeah, I've worked with some really great writers who, like, if you bring up something like the inciting incident, they don't know what you're talking about, despite the fact that it is, that they have a brilliant inciting incident in their script. It's just natural, like you don't want to ruin it sometimes. You don't want to
talk about the non-hitter.
Exactly right. So that's interesting.
Like I have an old writing partner that we came up writing comedy together, and then we kind of broke up, like I said, and he went on to write for Hawaii Five-0. But he's still my good friend, and we read each other's scripts and give each other notes. But I remember I gave him this script, and he read it. He's like, "Oh my God, you really learned structure good." I'm like, "Okay, I didn't even think about it at all, but sure." So it just kind of falls into place. You see enough movies, you know what the deal is.
Right. Well, again, but I still think that there is, like an innate ability, an innate talent to be able to do that. And my guess is that you have that ability. Somebody's just asking what is meant with union, and I think that they didn't see the movie.
Yeah, we explained it to them.
Oh, you did? Okay, yes. Very good. All right. Something. This is why I like to stay out of the chat.
Leandro
asked, did you have a budget in mind when writing the script?
I always try and keep it as low budget as possible. I've always learned, everything I read said to do that. So that's what I just try and do. I try and figure out the cheapest. I write a script that cheap, so that's what I try and do.
And then they can blow it up.
They can make it as big as they want, like which they did.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's good advice.
Because originally when Peter originally optioned it, that's what he said. He's like, this could be done really cheaply, or this could be done really big, like it was. So,
what was the budget on?
I heard $100 million. That's what it says on.
Wow.
That's what it says on the internet. I don't know.
Can you believe you wrote a $100 million movie?
No, that I definitely can't.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And with an Oscar winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to forget that. Anything else in here, Rebecca?
How long did it take you to write Day Shift?
Not that long. Like I came up with the initial idea when I was on my balcony in the San Fernando Valley, which is probably about a month of thinking about it. And then when I moved to New Jersey, it probably was like about another month or two writing it. So
It took you a month to write it?
Yeah, like a month or two usually to write.
Wow. Really? Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty quick. Like I said, I only had one kid in those days, which
but still, I mean, there are people that take 8, 9, 10 months, a year and a half to get a first draft. So why are you so fast at it?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm so fast. It just might have been this one idea. Like I said, I think about an idea for a long time. So it was just me on my balcony with a little notebook, making notes, smoking weed, fucking writing shit down. And then I kind of take those notes after a while when I kind of have it figured out, and I'll outline that, put it, in the structure, write a first draft. I do, like I said, I do a lot of thinking, a lot of outlining. So my first draft is probably more like a third or like a second or third draft. And then I do a couple more drafts and then get it to where I want it to be.
Wow. I'm impressed. I think, look, let's face it. It's a numbers game in some ways, right? It's a numbers game. If you take a year and a half to write one script,
that's a year and a half out of your life that you're dipping in your savings, and
it's it's kind of slow going.
It's a lot of diapers in a year and a half.
Yeah, especially for you.
But everybody I've worked with has always told me I work fast. So I
that's fast.
Stahelski, I remember telling me he likes me because I work really fast. So when they give me something to do, it's like I can't sit down until it's done. So I just it's like
it's definitely an asset. There's no doubt about that. Somebody's asking, any screenwriters who inspire you? Do you read other scripts? And do you like any old time writers?
I guess I always say my biggest influence has always been Quentin Tarantino. I remember seeing Pulp Fiction in the theater when it came out with my mom. And that's like when I really first kind of understood what a screenwriter can do. And I've always really enjoyed him and his movies. Back when I was in college and I first started screenwriting, we had like an office where they would have scripts, and I went through a bunch of scripts and I read them. And I always really enjoyed, like when I tried to find my style, I always really enjoyed like the Coen brothers and Alexander Payne, just how they wrote on the page. Cause a lot of people I feel like get bogged down in camera angles and like, it just takes me out of a script. So I always read those two screenwriters, and they always kind of inspired me. And on the page too, I like the author James Ellroy, and I feel like his kind of style translates into screenwriting. So I kind of emulate that on the page. I try and make it readable. I like reading scripts over time. There's scripts that just like, I feel like they're just boring. For even movies you read the script and they're just terrible. I always wanted to make it like a fun experience to read my script. So I always kind of like pick those guys to emulate.
Johnny Will Young wants to know if there are any Jersey scripts in your future.
Oh, there's tons of Jersey scripts in my future. Most of my scripts are Jersey scripts. It's just that my the one that actually made it was an LA script. So I feel like that's the only script I've ever written in LA. And that's the one that happened to hit. But yeah, everything else is Jersey. I have like a little mini series that takes place in New Jersey that someone's passing around town now. Everything else I'm writing takes place in New Jersey.
So. Christine wants to know, what do you mean that you keep it cheap? Do you mean limited locations, limited characters? It wants a little elaboration on that.
I don't know. I don't really think about it like how cheap can I keep this? It's just kind of like, I just feel like that's how I write. I don't know. You just kind of just a toned down story that won't be expensive. I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that specifically. I'm not like, well, where can I cut costs here? I just try and keep it a smaller story that I don't know. It's just a smaller story that feels like it could be inexpensive. Like, I'm not a producer. I don't know what things costs, but I know what are cheaper movies and what are more expensive movies, and I aim to make it a cheaper movie.
Wow. When you got the notes back and they were like, go bigger with the scene with the brothers, go bigger with the opening sequence with the old lady. Was that all sort of stuff that wound up was stuff you did?
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Like with the old lady in the beginning, like initially he just snuck in that house and just killed an old lady who was a vampire, and he didn't really have any pushback, you know.
Right.
In this, but that was JJ. He wanted that scene to be huge and like a big drawn out bloody fight, and like the whole wire that he puts across, that was all JJ's idea. We worked that in there, and you know, he finds like little scenes, like he does this kind of rule where he wants something to happen every 10 pages, like he wants a big burst of action every 10 pages. So he kind of went through the script and picked out spots where we could boost the action, and so we did that. And like things like that, you know, there was no car chase in it, but we put that in there. The scene, like it ended up being in the movie where they go into a bowling alley and they're taking out like these zombie vamps. That was never in there. It was initially I wrote it. They went into an abandoned mall and took out similar type vampires. It's just to add more action in.
It's kind of like the old, I'm going to date myself, the old Joel Silver whammo chart. Do you remember?
Exactly, yes.
Joel Silver, you know, great action producer. I hear those kids.
Yeah.
I hear those kids. You know, he had the old whammo chart. And that sounds like it sort of still exists, but
yeah, I think he called it the Marvel method. So I guess that's what they're calling it these days.
There you go. Somebody wants to know, would you ever think of using a pseudonym to send out non-horror scripts?
No, I'd probably just send it out under myself. I don't know who I would send it to, though. You know, I mean, I have a manager and an agent and kind of like a group of like producers that I know who read my scripts when I write them. But yeah, I don't think I would do that. You know, what's funny is my pseudonym my plan was always going to be Bud Jablonski.
Really?
Future. But then when I wrote Day Shifts, because it was going to be my last script, I didn't care. I just made that the character's name. Now I don't have my pseudonym anymore.
And let's face it, Tyler Tice, that sort of sounds almost like a pseudonym. It's a great name.
A good name for that's what everyone tells me.
It is a great name. Somebody's asking, this is a kind of a little off the beaten track. There's a massive ring on your finger. This is from Brian. Brian wants to know, is there a backstory to that ring? You
know, it's funny, when I won Slam Dance, I won 10 grand, and my friend who I was staying with in LA told me I had to buy something stupid with the money, so I bought this ring.
What is that?
It's a lion head. It's a gold-plated lion head. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah,
it's like sapphires for the eyes.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't 10 grand, but it was something stupid I bought with the money.
It looks like it's awfully heavy and
bulky.
Is.
Yeah.
Do you wear it all the time? Like,
no, I switch it out. I have another wedding ring, but I wear this one for my interviews.
Well, and look at that. It works.
Yeah. Right. I also bought this tattoo. It's a vampire head tattoo with my money too. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, nice.
So that's
Where'd
what I got.
Where'd you get that
done? New Jersey.
Wow.
I got it at Immortal Ink in Flemington, New Jersey, if you know where that is. I don't remember the guy's name who did it.
Tell them Tyler sent you.
Yeah.
Now, do you have like Snoop tattooed on your ass or something?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Someone wants to know how much of the actual action and fight sequence was written on the page versus how much was what the stunt directors put together.
Most of it was what they put together. You kind of do it. It's like you start off like specific, and then you kind of get general, and then you end specific. Like for the Nazarian brothers, it's like the fight starts off very specific. Like you're writing the specific things that are happening at the beginning, at the start, and then you just kind of go really general. Like the Nazarian brothers kick ass, and Bud does this. And if there's like a special gag, like with Seth, it's a little different. Like where Seth gets kind of attacked by the vampire, you'll write that in the middle, like Seth blah blah. But then you go more general again, and then you end more specific. So because they're going to do what they're going to do. And they even told me that. They're like, we're going to do what we're going to do. We're going to put our own shit in there. We know how to do this. So just kind of make it as general as possible unless you need specific things to be filmed. And then you put those in there.
Somebody wrote, what I truly loved about Day Shift was in the opening scene, you pull the rug out from everyone so many times. The guy's a pool cleaner. Wait, he's a thief. Wait, he's a killer. Wait, he's a vampire hunter. Amazing.
Thank you.
So I thought for sure that the Armenian brothers would have come back in the climax. Is there any talk of a sequel at all to this movie. Would you be involved in that?
I haven't heard anything yet. I've been in touch with the director. He's still waiting to hear. I've heard chatter on Twitter that they want the Nazarian brothers to have their own spin-off. I think there were drafts where they came back in the end, and there were there's been so many drafts with so many things, like people coming in and disappearing and stuff.
Yeah, because it was kind of interesting that they brought in the woman vampire at the end, who I thought was very attractive, mind you. But it's like they're bringing in kind of a new character.
Well, she wasn't. See, what's funny is in my script, she was a major character. That was kind of his conduit. Like it's basically in my script, it was like he was living in a building as a vampire hunter, and there just happened to be a vampire living there. They got to know each other, and that's how all hell broke loose. So and even through the script, she was a major character. But I think in the name of more action, they just kind of cut most of her part out.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting how scripts evolve, and then I call them ghosts or phantoms. That they're still sort of little pieces from old drafts. And
I don't want to point them all out in day shift, but they're apparent to me because I've been there through the whole process, even read subsequent drafts. But there's a lot of little like Easter eggs where they're kind of setting something up, and then later on it doesn't really pay off.
Right. Yeah, I guess it can be a little frustrating, or maybe fun.
Yeah, but I thought in the end it worked, and people I talked to about it, that no one noticed it, and it wasn't really that big of a deal for me, so it all worked in the end.
Right. Yeah, well, it certainly did. Anything else, Ramesh?
Do you have a set time period each day that you write? Someone wants to know.
No, not really. Like I said, I have a lot of kids, and so I kind of get up around 5 is what time they usually wake me up, and then we got to get them ready for school and feed everybody, and by the time everyone's at school it's usually like 8:30. So I was getting a good solid writing between like 8:30 and 11. Then we have to start picking the kids up from school again, and then by the time I usually do like an afternoon session, probably between like 2 and 5. So I try and work it in when I can. Sometimes if I'm working on something, I'll go into my office after the kids go to bed, which is like around 8 o'clock. But I'm so tired then. I don't usually get a whole lot of good stuff done at night. Just more of like notes and setting myself up for the next day and stuff like that. So it's hard. It's hard working around all the kids. And I have an office. Yeah, I try. I have an office here in my house, which was like my dream in life, to have a home office. And living in Florida, I'm able to do that. But it's like if I leave this office, it's crazy out there. It takes me like a fucking half hour to get back. People are asking me for food and shit. So I have cans in my office.
Are the kids allowed in the office? Are the kids allowed in the office?
Not when I'm here, but they will. I have gates out there that kind of keep them away, but they'll get through the gate and you'll hear someone.
What are the ages of your kids? I don't know if you told me.
6, 4, 2, and brand new.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
They're all so little. Oh
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
but like, so I keep a lot of cans in my office, and sometimes I just pee in a can.
Come on.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And my kids know. They'll be like, "There's your pecans, Dad." And
I will never again, ever again, tolerate any writer who says, "Oh, I don't have the time to write," or "It's just too difficult." Come on, folks, pee in a fucking can if you have to.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Because it's like my wife, it's like no one understands. Like my wife thinks it's like paint by numbers. Like I come in here and I just boo, 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 and I write. Like it's like you gotta get in the zone. It's like you get into it, and then like once you have that, I can't go out there. If I go to the bathroom, it's a mess. I have to change diapers and make food.
This is a high point. I have to say, this is truly a high. We've done a lot of these. And this to me is a high point, because this is really like, this is what it's really about. This is the nitty gritty. I love that you're so candid. This is, somebody wrote, this interview just went from good to great. So
like what I really need is one of those like I want like a he shed or a she shed, whatever they call them, where you have like a shed set up in your backyard. Like that's my goal. But until then, I'm in here.
Or maybe you get a satellite office. Larry Karaszewski and Scott Alexander, they have an office right around the corner from me here. It's like a storefront. And they go into it and like that's their office. So
that'd be awesome. I would love that.
So that's the goal for you. That's
like I could never write, like my friend writes in Starbucks. I don't know how the hell he does that. I need to like be like in a dark room somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Bill Martell a very prolific writer and one of our members. He seems to love writing in
at
Starbucks, but
Starbucks.
I don't get it because I would just watch everybody, or I
Yeah.
would be listening to other people's conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I take,
So-
but like I said, like it's my hobby writing. It's always been, so I kind of like have a party. Like I always write with a TV or a movie on. Sometimes I smoke weed. Sometimes I don't. You know, I don't know.
I don't know. Listen. There is a book. You got to write a book about sort of, it's like the Tyler Tice approach to screenwriting, because there's some great things here. All right. Anything else?
One more question here. Someone, from the time you sold the script to getting it going to production, do you know how many drafts you wrote?
Oh, I don't even know. There were so many. I mean, there were so many drafts in the beginning too. Like every time someone new came on, there was more and more drafts. There were times, like I remember we went to Blumhouse, and Blumhouse wanted it to. We're like, oh, this would make a really good TV series. So they're like, come up with like a deck or a Bible. So I took a week off from my restaurant job, wrote up this whole Bible or deck or whatever it is of all the episodes and everything, and then no one ever mentioned it again. So I just said, no one even spoke about it. So I just have that. I don't know. There had to have been, like, I wrote myself maybe 30, 40 drafts. And then post me, I know they brought on after me, they brought on 2 other writers that their drafts were just thrown away. They didn't even do anything with that. And then the third writer they brought on was Shay Hatton. And then I think, a lot of what you see in that is his. And then after Shay, they brought on 2 other writers who weren't credited. So there were like 5 or 6 writers on this, and 2 of them got credited.
Wow. This has been. Oh, go ahead, Ramesh.
When you were talking, when they came up to you saying, take it away from the mall and put it to the bowling alley, was that your decision? Let's do a bowling alley, or was that sort of
mine was a mall originally?
Right.
The mall was. It might have been, because at one point the mall was like, in my script there wasn't a mall at the end like there was. It was like a house in Calabasas was the ending. And the mall was in the beginning. Then at some point the mall shifted to the end. Then we shifted it back. Like I said, there's been so much like the character of El Jefe, you'll hear him mentioned.
Right.
There's been so many times where I put him in, took him out. At one point, Audrey was El Jefe. At one point, there was no El Jefe. I think because we went to Universal and Universal wanted a villain. So it's just like, there's so many drafts of like little changes here and there.
Yeah, I think that we're getting a very good idea as to sort of the evolution of a project and how it gets bounced around, and how the writer in many ways gets put through the ringer.
Yeah.
Through a lot of it. And you've really had to endure a lot. You've endured a lot of work to get to this point.
Yeah. Well, especially in the end too, because you're also dealing with 2 people. You're dealing with what Netflix wants, and then you're also dealing with what JJ wants. And you kind of got to thread that needle, because it's not always the same thing.
And did you find that your manager sort of helped to keep you even keeled a little bit?
I didn't have a manager at that
Oh,
point.
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So you were literally in this all by yourself?
Yeah, I was just walking blind. I wish I had one at that point. A lot of my issues, when I went to interview managers, I brought up a lot of issues I had with like the rewriting process and asked them what they would have done in that situation. And that's helped me choose which manager to go with.
That's interesting.
How often do you keep in touch with your manager?
I don't. Around recently, it's been a lot, just because of Day Shift coming out and everything. And I went out there for the premiere, and he kind of was able to set that all up. And I brought him the premiere, and we went out to dinner the night before. But it's usually only when like I finish a draft, I'll send it to him, or if something comes up or someone wants a meeting with me. Much more than I keep in touch with my agent, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that seems to be the way it is, which is why it's good to have a manager. But it's still, it's still okay every now and then to reach out to an agent, even if you're just saying, hey, just saying hello, seeing how you're doing, let them know that you're alive. Did you bring your wife to the premiere?
I did. I brought we had a baby. Our newest child was born on July 26th, and it was a C-section, and the premiere was August 10th. So she didn't know if she was going to make it, but at the last, she went to her OB. They said she was okay to travel. So we got.
Where did they have the premiere, Tyler?
It was at LA Live.
LA Live, yeah.
Yeah, I worked at a restaurant at LA Live for 2 years, so it's surreal being back there.
Did the cast show up?
Yeah, they were there, most of them.
So it was pretty exciting for you.
Yeah, it was, and it's cool seeing it on the big screen. You know,
Yeah.
when you see the parts that get the big laughs and everything, and it was a lot of fun. The popcorn container that I'll show you. Hold on.
Yeah, let's see it. It's a day shift popcorn.
Look at
Let's. Look at that! So
Hold
awesome.
on.
That's great.
Yeah, I got my day shift popcorn container.
That's really great.
I brought that back on the plane.
Memorabilia.
That is great. That is great. So listen, let me ask one last question, if I may, because this is, I think that you have brought a very interesting perspective that we haven't often heard from people. Because like when we talk to somebody like Christopher McQuarrie, he's far along in the process, you know, and so and you, like, to me, you are a working writer. You are the epitome of really what somebody has to do in order to make something happen and then try to sustain a career. I mean, talk about day shift. So what is it that you've learned through this new process?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I've learned anything yet. As far as one thing I have learned is coming up with ideas that are more Hollywood friendly, I guess, through pitching to my manager. I would just like have these like long drawn out plot lines, these like fucking and everything was like an ensemble piece and like huge. And then they basically taught me to whittle that down to being able to explain it in one sentence.
Right.
So my pitching has gotten a lot better. I mean, because when I first got out to here, I would go on these general meetings. What they are is they'll send your script out to all these people, and if they want to meet with you, you meet with them, and you basically just sit there and talk for like a half hour, and that's pretty much it. They just meet you, and I would go into these things and I would try and pitch everything, and my pitches were like 20 minutes long, and you just see their eyes glazing over, and basically just to keep your pitches short, and that all your movies should be able to be said in one sentence. Don't pitch anything in generals.
That's what we talk about in this group all the time. People are always like log lines. But I'm telling you, man, you want to be able to communicate your movie in a sentence, at least to start.
Yeah, the elevator pitch is what they tell me to concentrate on.
Yeah. Ramesh, anybody have any last? So we're going to so it goes to meetings. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Somebody is mentioning that when we interviewed Christopher McQuarrie, he said that he goes to meetings and asks people what ideas they have. And then
I'm not gonna do that. He'll be like, "Fuck you."
Well, he's Christopher McQuarrie, but something. Tyler Tice is going to be there very soon, because I got to say, brother, you got a lot of drive, man. You really do. You have a lot of drive, and to me, so much of this business is about having that drive and being willing to make the sacrifices.
Peeing cans in your office.
The peeing in cans, which you have done. So thank you so much for taking the time here today. I know that the group is very appreciative. People are saying that it is enlightening, great talk. I had no idea that it was going to be sort of this earthy, and I'm glad, and I'm really, really glad that it was.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
So thank you. And Ramesh, thank you for bringing TICE to us.
No, it was through John, actually. I reached out to John, and he was like, I said, "Can I speak to Tyler?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." So.
Yeah. Well, then, thank you, John. And thank you to all of our members who took time out this morning, and for all of you who will watch this in rerun. So enjoy the rest of your day.
Right.
Bye, everybody.
And Ian was the one who also put me through. So.
Oh, and Ian too. Yes, thank you, Ian Shore.
Oh, Ian Shore, yeah.
Ian Shore. All right, everybody. Peace out.
Thank you.